to my immediate left, from Imperial Business School in London, great place, right across from the Victoria and Albert Museum,
Exactly.
and a school that has a great reputation for science in particular. We have the Dean of the Business School, Francisco Veloso. Next to him, we have from Switzerland, who managed to get in here today, Sean Meehan, who is the Dean of the MBA program at IMD, very well-known and long-time player in MBA education, executive education in Europe. And then next to him, we have from Rotterdam School of Management, the Dean, Stef van de Wil. And then next to him, we have Martin Boehm, who's the Dean of IE Business School in Spain. So welcome all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question is, to me, an obvious question as an American. We have a president that has made the world very nervous. And he's actually made MBA applicants kind of nervous to come to the United States for education. There's been a lot of anti-immigration rhetoric in America as a result of this president. We now see that he's trying to raise tariffs, which could in fact create a global trade war. How are your schools taking advantage of these moves to get more of the best applicants in the world?
All right. Well, first, thank you for the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure to be able to contribute to these very interesting sets of topics. I mean, we have seen an important demand, and so it's interesting also in the UK because, as we know, also as Trump was becoming president, we're here in the UK dealing with a different type of uncertainty, which is called Brexit. And so we were also apprehensive about what that meant for demand. But effectively, maybe on the big scale of things, Brexit versus Trump, Trump is winning or losing, depending on how you think about it, because our demand has been going up quite a bit over the last couple of years. So we don't know the ceteris paribus, meaning if Trump existed but not Brexit, what would have happened to the demand? But we have not seen any decline on demand. On the contrary, it's been growing significantly last year as well as this year as well.
Right. Sean, your perspective?
Listen, I think it's a phenomenon that we have to deal with, but it's a constant. I really am not remotely fazed by Trump, by Brexit, or anything. There's always something, and this is a constant. And the world will get more volatile, not less. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I see this as an extraordinary moment of opportunity in our society. I think that the gauntlet is being thrown down by populists. I think business has an incredibly important role to play. I applaud all of the schools and the innovations that are going on to bring people in lots of different formats and so on, that opens up the world to help our next generation of people become great leaders and managers, to help steer us into the future that we want to be created. A 70-plus-year-old man in the White House is not going to determine the future of our society. The people sitting in this room are going to determine the future of our society.
Well said. Steph? You're here. No, I've been asked many times what I thought of Trump and Brexit and Catalonia becoming independent. And then I said, well, as a business school dean in continental Europe, I think that's great, right? I think as a world citizen, it's awful. But it's not just the US or Brexit or Catalonia. There's so many other countries in the world right now where populism is raging, including in the EU, right? And clearly, like you said, it's trying to find our position and point out to people that we have a bigger responsibility than just protectionism, in a sense. That's
right.
Yeah. So, but it is affecting our positioning for sure. We see that more people are applying from the US. We see more people applying from Britain. Clear.
Martin?
I mean, I think I can echo my colleagues. I think we face a very similar situation. I would say it's very sad to see what is going on in the world, because I think as a business school, we're always promoting, I think, the idea of open markets, free markets. I think we always promote the idea as well of globalization, and I think we see that especially in our student body that is highly diverse, highly international, and obviously this is something that we are really, or is a fundamental theme or fundamental value of our institution. So I think it is really sad to see some of the events that are taking place over the last few months or even years. But at the same time, it's true. I mean, like, I think as an institution, I think we have even benefited in that sense that our applications are stronger than ever. And we actually see this at all different levels. I mean, like, we are an institution as well that offers undergraduate degrees, and we see increase at undergraduate and master level and MBA level, and for multiple reasons. I mean, like you mentioned, or the Catalonia issue was brought up, that obviously benefits us more at the undergraduate level because it's still a national market. But obviously as well, Trump and Brexit, I think, did help, I think, to bring in better talent, more talent.
Right. You know, this year marks the 110th year of the creation of the first MBA program at Harvard Business School in 1908. A lot of people think the heyday for the MBA was sort of the 1980s when it truly boosted post-MBA pay very, very significantly. And it looks like the return on the investment has actually declined in more recent years. Do you think the MBA is a good investment? Let's start with Steph.
I think it depends on who you are, where you are, right? But you're right, there are different animals right now. In continental Europe, you got the pre-experienced master programs. That's a huge market, very mobile. You see the rise of professional masters coming up, very specialist. So clearly there are alternatives to an MBA, but deep down I still believe that MBA can give you a lot of value for money. The right person in the right position.
So who is the right person in the right position for an MBA today?
Well, I think that the way to look at that is to think about even the basis of the MBA and the basis, I think, of what happens that lead people to an MBA. We have to think that as you look at a corporation and as people go through the ranks of a corporation, they reach a stage, a few years of experience, that they have a much better self-awareness of themselves and what their capabilities are, as well as of what they believe that they can do in terms of contribution, whether in a corporation or as a startup. And they feel they lack a variety of tools and a variety of understanding, and that may be because of their background. Maybe they did engineering or natural sciences or humanities, and now they've gotten into a management position and they feel that their toolkit is not complete, right? Or maybe they did something undergraduate in business or economics, but the same way they feel that now they have a different understanding, or they're looking for a particular, more specialized set of skills within a broader education, and that's what the MBA provides. And so I really think that when we look at the grand scheme of things and all the people that go through the managerial ranks and have that self-awareness that they can reach to a certain level of leadership in an organization, the MBA continues to be a very critical product and one that I think makes a lot of sense. Now, the type of MBA, which is natural for a more mature market, is also very diverse, right? You may have the traditional kind of like baseline MBA, you may have more specialized MBAs that focus more on entrepreneurship or in technology or something like that. You're going to have a whole gamut, or maybe you do it later as an executive MBA. That's, I think, a sign of a mature market that the MBAs are. But I think fundamentally, as a core product in terms of what it provides, I think it's still there.
And Sean, you tend to get older students, slightly older than many of the other business schools. What do you think they see in coming IMD in terms of the value of the degree and what it can do for them?
You know, the number one thing I stress, I really want people to think about is, don't come to us if you want an MBA. That's not the purpose of what we're doing. It's a piece of paper, it's a degree, it's a stamp. What you're coming for, and I think it's implicit in the responses you've heard so far, is an education. What do you not know? You need to answer a number of questions. Why, what, where, when, how. And you really, the first of those questions, the why, is critical. What you need, I believe, is confidence. You probably already are. To get into a great program, you probably already know business. You know enough about business. You're talented. You have a good track record. That's what it takes to get in. So what's the incremental value? Imagine that your career progression represents a trajectory, a line that you would see on a graph, and it's probably an impressive one. If you can't enhance that trajectory after your investment, then it's not worth it. If you can, it's worth it, perhaps, if that's what you want. What our students come to us for, John, is they are targeting really having an impact. They want to be what I would call players in business, in society. And that's what we're training them for. We're taking that 1 year, we're giving them the confidence, the tools, the frameworks, the networks, the connections, and they walk away willing to play. And that's all we can ask. And I don't believe that, honestly, the tools and techniques are the difference between a player and a non-player. I think it's the confidence to use them. And you know, the mystified sort of, I think it's too easy in your 20s to think that there's something super-esque about the people who are running businesses in their 40s. They're not. They're the same as you, just a few years later with more experience. And so to have the confidence to play is a very difficult thing to acquire. So you need to pick a program where you're going to get, I believe, stressed, challenged, pushed, and you will walk away willing to address any crisis, any topic, any challenge.
Martin, you have a view?
Certainly. I would say, obviously, the fundamental motivations why someone is seeking out an MBA. And I probably don't want to discuss them here, but focus a little bit more on why they would actually come to us. I think, obviously, they come to us for multiple reasons, right? I think it has to do clearly for what we stand for, and we as an institution try to stand for some of the values that we make very clear as well in the admissions process, which is about an entrepreneurial mindset. We have been started by entrepreneurs who have always been entrepreneurial, always try to push the boundaries, always drive innovation in the educational sector, but obviously as well beyond. So I think what we do is we attract that kind of candidate who's looking for such an environment. The second value I think that is essential for us is having a global spirit, a global mindset of embracing diversity and quite clearly seeing the benefits of diversity. And here I don't refer only to diversity in terms of passports or nationalities, but really embracing the benefit of having different cultures together, different backgrounds, different experiences together, and actually leveraging that. And the last one is really global mindset in a different way, global mindset in terms of really developing not only professionals, but as well human beings. I think that is something that has always been very important for us as well, because we believe as well, or we hope to believe, that we educate and develop the leaders of the future. And I think in order to be an extraordinary leader, it's not only knowing the technical things, having the technical skills, business skills, but at the same time it is as well about being a good human being. And I think that's something that we're pushing really hard as well.
Yeah, that's true. You know, a lot of applicants look at the price of these degrees and they go in shock. And they worry about not only quitting their jobs to come to school for a full-time program and losing the opportunity cost of that money, but also paying for the degree and often going into debt for it. Do you think the MBA is in general too expensive an education product?
I think it really depends. First, because the MBA, as we were talking about, is a very diverse market.
Indeed.
Right? So as it was already referred, I mean, it really depends on where you are and what you think you can bring. I mean, in our case in particular, for example, when I think about the value that they get to come to Imperial College, where they're going to be not only an environment that, you know, brings them the basic tools that the MBA provides in terms of the core areas, you know, finance, marketing, and all the tools that you require, but also to have the experience to be in a very entrepreneurial environment, in a very technological-driven environment. I think you can really, you know, take a lot of things that are going to make a huge impact in your life. And so when you think about that, I think it certainly merits, you know, the cost of having an MBA degree. Now, you can get on these debates about the 1 year versus the 2 years and all of that, and I think it really depends. What I see is that, you know, if you know what you are and you have a particular goal for what you want to take out of the MBA, the good thing is that you have such a plethora of diversity of offerings from the 1 year to the 2 years, something that's more focused on having an entrepreneurial and a technological disruption environment, such as what you'd find in Imperial College, business school, or something that may be more generic that you find in other places, older, younger, and that is also going to be reflected in the price. And so I think if you have that understanding, you will make the choice that makes sense for you.
Right. Steph, has the MBA become too expensive?
I would say yes and no. If you would consider 2-year programs, I really seriously doubt whether that's worth the investment. But that may be a European perspective. Like I said, you got other programs, 1-year master programs, you got 1-year professional master programs. So against that background, I doubt the usefulness of a 2-year MBA program. If you look at a 1-year MBA program, clearly it's a lot of money, but you're buying a transformational experience. And it's an opportunity to recalibrate, to reinvent yourself, right? And that's a lifetime investment. So if you take it against your lifetime, actually it's pretty cheap, I would say. Pretty affordable.
Is it really cheap?
Maybe we should charge more.
Is it really cheap, Sean?
So, it is not expensive, but it is very expensive for you. So let me explain. When you think of what it is that you need to be doing for society and the challenges that are existing around, MBA should be free. You pick great people, you give them a great education, you put them in great positions, and they will create wonders for our world. Great value will be created. The returns to society are immense from this degree. So why isn't society ponying up and funding your programs? And I think we will move in that direction. I see huge opportunity for funding, and the price tag is a reflection of the cost and the return for you, for most programs, I think. But whether you should be ponying up for that or whether that should be others as well or exclusively is something we should really address as an industry, I think.
Yeah.
And if I may, that's exactly why our undergraduate programs and pre-experienced master programs are for free if you're a European citizen. Right? So our government exactly thinks along those lines.
Yeah. And to be
But
fair,
not far enough.
there is a large degree of 2-tier pricing, right? There is a lot of scholarship money available. Many schools are discounting a degree. So there is a sticker price like there is in a car when you go to a car dealership. And then there's a real price that a lot of people pay.
It's a great analogy, and we're not car dealers. And if we continue to behave the way we are, that's how we will be seen, and we will devalue this category.
Yes.
But if I may jump in here, I think I'm like sticking a little bit the metaphor of the car, right? If you think about it, like in our case, our MBA is basically half the cost of a Tesla. And if you think about it, I wonder what investment probably is going to give you or generate more benefits for you. I think probably a Tesla is a fun toy. I mean, it's amazing, and maybe it's great for the environment, but at the same time, for half the cost, you're basically investing truly in a transformational experience that is going to change your life forever. I mean, this is pretty amazing if you think about it, right? I mean, so I think we always have to put that a little bit more into perspective, or have to look at this relative. And what we really try to do, and I think that applies for all of our schools, we really want to make sure as well that nobody is basically left outside by not having the financial means. I think all of us are trying to invest heavily, try to collaborate with foundations, with donors, with alumni in order to make sure that no talent goes to waste, that really the best talent can make it into the programs, even if they can't afford it. And I think that is absolutely key. We shouldn't only focus on the sticker price.
Boy, Tesla's a nice car to drive, though.
Our MBA is a really nice experience as well.
I actually think an MBA is the most generous gift you can give yourself. Other than maybe marrying a spouse that you really greatly admire and have passion for, MBA is a pretty good investment. Okay, so in the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of talk about how technology would disrupt higher education. And in truth, I don't think we've seen much of a disruption at all. What we've seen is schools embrace technology, use it wisely to advance learning, to flip classrooms. and in some cases to actually launch fully online degree programs. Now, IE was a pioneer in the online degree space. Talk about how that has evolved and why technology actually hasn't really been as disruptive as people feared.
I think disruption could still happen, to be honest, right? I mean, it's actually true if we look back over the last 10 years, maybe there has not been a fundamental disruption. It's not like the prophecies basically predicted a couple of years ago that MOOC's gonna destroy the educational sector. Obviously, that didn't really happen, right? The MOOC tsunami didn't really appear. Nevertheless, I think, as you pointed out, I think the technology and the digital disruption really has helped us to significantly improve, I think, the education that we actually can deliver to our students. We have actually been able as well to expand, I think, our reach and reach students that before didn't have the opportunity to maybe enjoy part of our education. So what we have tried to do is use technology on a daily basis, and that might mean at a course level by using simulation, using games, flipping classroom and so forth, in order to make just the learning much more efficient, much more enjoyable for our students. And as you already pointed out, I'm to some extent as well broadening the scope. There, I think MOOCs have been super helpful in order to give potential candidates as well to some extent the opportunity to try and test drive, sticking with the metaphor of the cars test drive, a little bit the educational services that you're going to get from the different institutions before you actually commit to paying the full sticker price maybe for an MBA experience. So in that sense, I think it really has helped. Nevertheless, there might still be some disruption on the horizon. It still could be that maybe some smaller players will disrupt the sector. I hope that's not going to happen. I think we as an institution at least try to be at the forefront in order to make sure not to be disrupted by some of these players, but who knows, I mean, it might still happen.
Yes. And also, I think the market still sees value in face-to-face education. Why doesn't IMD have an online MBA program?
Look, we have distance learning.
Say whatever you want. You could offend Martin. He doesn't mind.
We have distance learning, but not in our MBA program, because we are not in the business of only giving you a skill set and a set of frameworks. We're actually trying to curate an experience which is co-created with the 90 people that we invest extraordinarily heavily in selecting. And for us, that's a little bit like saying, watch a Disney movie instead of going to Disneyland. They're two different products. One is for one reason and one's for another. And again, you have to come back to the why, what, when, where, and how before you would say it's substitutable. So it's not substitutable in our case. If we had an online MBA, it wouldn't replace the MBA program that we have. We're very comfortable with the program we have. It achieves what we're trying to achieve. Why would we add that? I welcome I don't see it as a disruption at all, actually. I just see it as progress.
Right.
And I think the more important thing is that the underlying technologies, how are they shaping industries? And I'm sure all of the curriculums represented here and not represented here all have to reflect the contemporary nature of business. What's business going to be like? It's going to be more global than it is today, in spite of tariffs. You will see the end game will be a more globalized economy, not a less globalized economy.
Despite Trump and Brexit.
No, because of. It's a stimulus. It's something that's been dropped into the system. It will be antibodied out, and we will be in a better place afterwards. It will take time. There will be a struggle. We now have many more people involved in our political processes. That is not a bad thing. It just changed the outcome, and that's not. That is a temporary disorder that then, those people who are now in the system will be open to and more engaged with other arguments. And we'll see where that ends up. And wherever it ends up is where democracy brings us. But industry has to respond to the world as it's going to be, not as it is. The job of industry is not to serve today's customers. It usually does a great job at that. But it's about where's this headed and how will the technologies that will affect our business. The major effect is that we need to really meet it with our curricula. We need to, it's why we did a redesign. It's a lot of digital stuff that we have in the program now, a digital boot camp, the digital stack that we have throughout all of our programs at IMD is now in our MBA program. About a third of our entire program is experiential. So, as I say, it's a curated experience that digital will never replace. It might be a substitute, or not substitute, it might be a complementor, and it might sit alongside, but it will never replace.
Martin has something to say.
Yeah, I had something to say, because I'm like Sean is saying something super important here, and it really links back to what I mentioned about the MOOCs. I think the reason why MOOCs didn't disrupt the education sector is quite clearly because the experience is absolutely fundamental. I mean, like, this is what you need. This is the key ingredient in order to have a transformational experience. But I wouldn't say necessarily that you can't deliver an amazing experience by using digital tools. And it's even more so for the new students coming in who are clearly digital natives. And it probably would say as well, if you talk to, high school kids, university students, if you would say, only because you relate with your friends via WhatsApp and Facebook and so forth, they're not real friends, they would say, are you crazy? Absolutely, they're real friends. And I'm probably closer to them than you have ever been to your friends, because now I have friends all over the globe and I can be in touch with them 24/7.
Right.
And this is really what we see as well with our online MBA students. We actually see that they are such a close-knit community that as well, once they graduate from the program, they're actually so much more engaged, interestingly enough, with the institution, and so much more engaged with each other compared to some of the full-time students. So It's really interesting how this is changing, I think, in society.
How is Imperial using technology? And you don't have an online MBA program.
Yes, we do.
You do? Okay.
And
how long have you had it?
We've had it now for 2.5 years, and it's grown to become, in terms of numbers, our largest program very quickly.
Wow.
So we've been investing very significantly on the digital tools and the digital toolkits. I mean, we created, 5 years ago, an educational technology unit inside the business school to really explore digital in all its components. Because, as Martin alluded to, it is the new generations and the way they relate to digital is completely different. And so our perception is that if we're not pushing ourselves to be exploring that boundary, we will not be able to relate to these new generations in a few years. Because the organizational transformation that is required even inside the business schools for everybody, all the professors, all the staff, to feel very comfortable with the digital environment, it takes time. There's this internal socialization element. It's quite important. And we've seen that happen at the Business School of Imperial College over the last few years. I mean, the embracing of the faculty, the understanding that the way that you teach in a much more digital mediated environment is quite different than just in the classroom. Understanding how you blend the two things is also quite different. So what has enabled us is to change our reach, to change our organization, and to change our toolkit across the board. Our reach because of the Global Online MBA. I mean, once we launched the Global Online MBA, it really allows us to reach a set of people that cannot come. They would like, but just for a variety of elements, cannot do it. I mean, the example is we have now as equal representation of Africa as we have from Europe or North America. Why? Because we have people like, say, a manager of large infrastructures in Africa that flies from one place to the other, that really would like to get an MBA, and is not ready to get out 1 year because of the way the industry works.
Right.
And he does it like that.
Yeah.
That's increasing the reach that technology allows it. There's still a component in campus, but it's what it allows. The second one has to do with the organization, right? That's what I was saying. One of the most interesting things that we've been finding is precisely the way we change, even the way that we offer our internal electives, the blend of digital and non-digital inside our campus at all levels. One interesting example is that we offer a variety of modules at the undergraduate level to the rest of science and engineering. The moment we started to offer digital, our subscription levels went up by 30 to 40%. Why? Because it's much more flexible, right? So the way that we're programming the organization is very different to actually internally even blend, the digital. What makes sense to be digital is digital. what is fundamental to have a personal experience, you do it as a personal experience. The last element that I want to do is around understanding digital, also about the level of tools and experiences that it can be. It can be about the social, as Martin was saying, connecting people in a different way, but it can also be very local. For example, we have a visualization room which is amazing, that allows, it's a 320-degree room to visualize complex data.
I've seen it, it's terrific.
And we bring our students there. For example, we have an interesting set of projects with KPMG that we call Data Sparks, where they go and visualize complex issues in a very different way using digital tools, right? So we have to think about digital, all these multiple components. And just to close down, relating back to your issue about the disruption, which is, I see the disruption as the tools that do not embrace digital very seriously will be very much losing the game very quickly, not because they don't have a global online MBA, because understanding digital really changes the way that you organize things differently, makes it much more effective, makes it much more powerful, even for those that are on campus.
Right.
So if you don't do it, you're going to be left behind very quickly.
Steph, who should take an online MBA program and who should take a residential program?
No one.
No one. No one for both?
No one for the first.
Oh.
It gave me a lot of time to think and reflect on what the others said. We don't offer an online MBA, and the assumption with an totally online MBA, fully online, is basically that the learning takes place in the classroom, following courses, taking exams, case discussions. If you look at our MBA, it's incredibly diverse and international. The learning is actually also happening outside of the classroom. It's a community, it's experiential. So I truly don't believe you can replace that kind of experience with an online MBA. At the same time, you were talking about disruption. Certain areas of higher education have been disrupted. There are fully online master degrees in computer science, and they're working very, very well, right? But it's a totally different business. The assumption with an online MBA is still that, to a large extent, the learning is about technical knowledge. And we all know, actually, that is not the case. If you look at our curriculum, technical knowledge is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's much more about skills and competencies and context, but also what we call character building, values and attitudes. And I truly do not believe that this can be replaced by an online program.
But let me pick on that sense, because the interesting thing is precisely that. The note that I was addressing about getting comfortable with digital is precisely that. There's a bunch of things that you can do digital and leave the rest of the time to do that experimental part, where the value is really on that experimental notion.
Sure.
And it's learning about that balance. So watching a lecture is much better to do it online rather than to do it there. I mean, having a case discussion around a particular issue, or having experiential gaming, local with your colleagues is a different thing. And it is about curating that blend, that it's going to make different space for different things, so that you optimize it and make it a much more interesting global overall experience at all levels.
Two of the biggest trends I've seen in the last 5 years in business education is the move toward more experiential learning. And Sean, you mentioned that in your latest MBA revamp, 1/3 of the program is now experiential learning. And then the greater emphasis on entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship in a broader sense, which could mean bringing an entrepreneurial mindset to a big company. How are you using experiential learning, and why has it become more popular? And does it make business education more practical? Steph?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's definitely a trend that you observe everywhere. What we do is, for instance, we have got something that's called, I forgot the exact term. But basically what happens is we expose our students to consultancy projects, real consultancy projects from companies. And they got 2 weeks full-time to work on these projects. Right? So you bring basically business into the classroom, a real experience. The same with entrepreneurship. We have a great Center for Entrepreneurship. It's getting more and more popular, even with full-time MBA students. And that's really striking because on the one hand, like we talked about earlier, it's a huge investment into your program. People are taking on a loan, and you would expect that people would say, hey, wait a minute, I'll need some experience. I'll work 5 years with a consulting company or financial industry just to pay back on my loan. But what we are seeing is that more and more also MBA graduates, full-time MBA graduates, want to start up their own company, and actually we facilitate them.
Now, do you encourage MBA graduates to start their own companies, or would you advise them to get some more experience before they take a risk like that?
We haven't dropped that word yet, right? But in principle, it's awful for your rankings, right? But yes, we do, right? Yeah.
Now, Martin, what is IE doing in the experiential area?
So before maybe getting into what we actually do let me use yet again another metaphor why probably experiential learning has become so much more important. And let me use the example of soccer. I think all of us are the most amazing soccer players, it seems, right? Because we see all our national teams play and we know exactly what we should be doing better, right? But unfortunately, you don't learn how to play excellent soccer by watching television or reading about soccer. You have to go out on the pitch, practice over and over and over again in order to learn, right? And I think the same is true as well with the professional business. I think you have to practice in order to actually learn. And on top of that, I think by practicing it, it's not only about learning the technique of playing soccer and passing the ball to my colleagues, but you actually learn and pick up many other qualities that are important as well. It's about endurance, being able to pace yourself over 90 minutes, that you actually make it until the end of the game. It's about partnership, it's about collaboration, it's about passing on at the right time. And it is actually a skill, it's an attitude to some extent that you have to develop over time. So I think it is the perfect metaphor why actually experiential learning is so absolutely essential when it comes down to business education. Because otherwise, learning really doesn't take place, and we don't develop the right MBA graduates. So coming back really quickly to your question, what do we do? I actually don't know whether we do 1/3 experiential learning. I would say everything is experiential, what we do. Because experiential for me is a case discussion. Experiential is for me a consulting project. Experiential is for me to have the team after class sit together, discuss the case, already collaborate for the next project, teach each other financial accounting. All this is experiential learning. In our case, I would say the instant where we have actual lectures where there's no interaction, I think it's close to zero. I would not be aware of a time frame throughout this 1-year MBA program that is longer than 10 minutes where we actually have a faculty lecture in an uninterrupted manner. I think 10 minutes is actually pushing it. My feeling is it's probably down to 5 minutes or 3 minutes or something like this. So I would say actually everything is becoming experiential. It has to.
Now, why did you put 1/3 of your program in experiential learning?
We didn't set out to. 35 years ago, we pioneered what we call the International Consulting Project. And that is now a 7-week project. We work with some of the biggest companies around the world. It is an international consulting project, meaning doesn't take place in Switzerland. You go elsewhere. Some of it might be, but mostly it will be, most students will spend a month at either the objective side or the head office side of the company. And they'll be in Africa, they'll be in Latin America, they'll be in Asia, all over. So that's 7 weeks. We have a 1-week innovation lab. For the reasons that we just heard, it's a very different thing to talk about it than to do it. So last year we pioneered a process through which students start with a problem and within a number of days come with a solution. And at the end of that process, and it's a curated process, they work with product designers, they work in workshops, they go visit sites to talk to potential consumers, but it's all in an incredibly condensed manner. It's very difficult to actually execute for us, but it worked, so we're doubling down on it. It's a 1-week experience. Last year, our students, we had 2 winners in a big startup competition type thing. And they went on to the next round, and one of their ideas became the winner. And it's for Parkinson's sufferers. And it's a device that helps stabilize the vessel that you use to drink, whether it's a cup or a glass or whatever it is. And it helped, and so the project, the problem that all students were given, all teams were given, was how do you enhance the experience of a patient, appearance of a sufferer? How do you make that a better experience overall? So they start with a problem, and they learn about Agile, they learn about Scrum, they learn about human-centered design by doing it, not through a lecture. We have exactly the same approach in our digital lab. You start with knowing nothing. Most people will start with knowing nothing about coding, and at the end of the week, they have built an app. At the end of the week, they'll have built something in response to a specific problem set that they've been given. We bring people around the world for 2 weeks. We visit the centers that we believe, some of the centers, there are many, that we believe are pushing the digital revolution in our society. We'll go to Silicon Valley, we'll go to Bangalore, we'll go to Singapore for different reasons, see different things, interact with those business ecosystems. And I think what's important there is the entire class goes. It's not an elective experience, it's what we think is important, because digital, entrepreneurship, and global are key elements. I mean, you have to experience them. We don't teach them. They have to just be immersed in that. It just happened to end up, when you add these and other things together, that we have, it happens to be 1/3. And it could grow. It's not, there's no limit on it. But actually, you know, we don't have, I know of no, I don't know, no, there are no lectures. I think I can say that. There are just no lectures.
No
As simple
lectures
as that.
anymore.
No.
I mean, the experiential is very interesting, and the way I would look at it is more to think that, you know, we're living in a world where digital and technology is disrupting, you know, entire businesses, supply chains, areas. So this is happening, right? And so what I tell the students, even as they start, is to say, look, this is happening. So you can either be on the passenger seat, see this happening around you, or you're going to be on the driver's seat,
Right.
helping steer that into a direction that benefits business and society, which is, you know, what we strive to do. So we're very fortunate to be part of Imperial College that is pushing a lot of these technologies that are disrupting and contributing to this disruption on artificial intelligence, on carbon capture and sequestration, you know, on you know, health and digital health. I mean, all of these, we have there an amazing environment. So for us, it is around creating a safe, but also as close as possible environment to the real world for our students to feel comfortable taking risks, accepting this disruption, going with it, so that when they go back to the workforce, they are much better equipped to be thriving in this environment and to be what I said about the driving seat. So how do we do this? We do this by things like, for example, making sure they're very comfortable with design thinking and business design. Why? Because in the next 10 years, they will for sure be in a business environment that will be disrupted, and we'll have to redesign the entire business model. So they would have understand exactly what that is.
Right.
We want them to understand what it is to have a startup that is blockchain-based, that is changing completely the way that some industry is going to be organized. So through the MBA Connect, we put them in touch with students in natural sciences and in engineering that are pushing some of these startups to help them you know, develop the startups and understand what is the process. We want them to be comfortable with risk, so we put them managing, for example, a carbon a plant, a chemical plant, and that is a simulator that we can put some, you know, problems into it, and they have to deal it with a team. If they have suddenly a leak, for example, how do they work in a team in a risk environment? How do they make decisions? And then we can debug this. This is all experiential, is all connected to some of the tools that we give them, but it is about, whether on the entrepreneurial route or in an established firm, to better equip the students to be, you know, drivers, these agents of change in whatever the direction they decide to go. And we take it upon us to help them be better equipped to do that.
So you talk about MBAs as agents of change. Let me tell you how some people perceive MBAs. You know, when the economic crisis hit 10 years ago, many people blamed MBAs for the Great Recession. MBAs are often considered greedy, manipulative, sharp-elbowed, not all that concerned with ethics or the environment. What's your perspective on what MBAs are really like as opposed to what the stereotype I just gave you? Steph, you've actually changed your program in ways that really immerse the program in sustainability and environmental goals, right? Is that because you think people who come to MBA programs really need that because they need to be converted?
So RSM, Rotterdam School of Management, is a very comprehensive school. So pretty big, bachelor, master, MBA, you name it, we got it. Last year we changed the mission of the school. And so let me ask you, how many of you know the mission of the organization you're working for? Not bad. So what is it?
To defend the United States.
He flies fighter jets, okay?
And that's why you're here in the UK. Anyway.
And that's succinct and clear, right?
No. But I mean, our school is doing pretty well. And then about 2 years ago, we said to ourselves, okay, what's next? What's the next ambition? And then we sat down and we thought we need a new common purpose. And then we went back to the core, thinking about our mission statement. And the mission statements of schools are not very distinctive. They all talk about excellence, this and that, and so on, and ours as well. And actually no one at that time knew exactly what our mission was. So we had a committee and a lot of stakeholder consultation. And then initially we had a very long statement saying we're in Rotterdam, gateway to Europe, very entrepreneurial, open-minded, because we are a port city, we're good in this and good in that. And then we started honing this a little bit. And then there was a lady in our school who said, and I really liked that as an eye-opener, she said, the better the school, the shorter the mission statement, right? So we just deleted everything that we thought was trivial, and we kept something that's really core to our values, and that's to be a force for positive change. And actually, before all of that, I took mission statements pretty cynical. Like, okay, you need them apparently, but it's all about strategy and initiatives. But this has really changed our school a lot. So it has created a lot of passion and enthusiasm, but also a lot of discussion like, okay, what does it actually mean, positive change? And then we're referring to the Sustainable Development Goals, because in a sense, that's a very universal language to talk about positive change. I don't know whether you know them. It's about hunger and climate change and inequality and infrastructure. So it goes way beyond sustainability, because sustainability or business ethics, right? I mean, why would you want to teach that as a separate course? No, it really is ingrained in the entire school, the entire curriculum. And our thinking is, the world is facing so many of these big challenges, right? The ones I just mentioned. And we truly believe, it's our conviction that business has to play a key role in addressing these problems. So we're talking about disruption and technology, but we also believe that the world needs new business models that do good and that do well at the same time. So that's basically what we are trying to achieve right now. And we're changing our curricula, we're changing our research agenda, the way we outreach, we're changing our hiring policies and also admission policies. Because basically we only want to have students in the classroom that are actually passionate about that particular mission statement, that are really supportive, because otherwise it wouldn't work.
Right.
In order to drive that mission, we need talented people, students, that help us to achieve it.
Right. Martin, are your students greedy?
To be honest, I think, yes, I think what has happened over the past is that MBA graduates have been demonized, and I think this is absolutely not appropriate, to be completely honest, right? Are there black sheeps? Yeah, probably. But we have black sheeps everywhere. I really truly believe that the majority of MBA graduates, as Dave pointed out, I think are interested in doing good. I mean, doing good, obviously, for themselves, yes, doing good as well for the people around them and for the larger society. I really believe in that. I mean, like, we see this, I think, every single day with our students, where we have, obviously, students come in and they say, I have this idea about this entrepreneurial venture, and as Sean pointed out, maybe it might be the drive of trying something new, maybe it might be the drive of just setting up your own company, but at the same time, in the process, they help people who really suffer from a very serious disease, for instance, right? Or we see in our case many students trying to tackle some of the fundamental issues that we face every single day. So I think it is not justified to demonize MBA students. I think the large majority is really thinking about the positive change that they can facilitate in the world.
Yeah, I mean, look, my question addresses a concern that's often exists among non-traditional applicants to business school. I mean, in the many tens of thousands of MBA students that I've met over the course of my lifetime, I've rarely met a more eclectic, more concerned, more engaged group about society than MBA students. We have a little time left, and I want to see if anyone out here has a question or two for any of the deans on the panel. Anybody? Oh, we've got a shy group, don't we? Here we go. You're going to have to get up and speak very loudly. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
My name is Jeevan. I live locally. It's just really a question. I mean, I've had a chance to go on the app and look at the profiles of a number of people, a lot of successful people here, people who work on a number of firms, prestigious organizations and the like. My question is actually a two-part thing. What advice would you give to someone who's, thanks. What advice would you give to someone who's, say, been chewed out and spit out a lot in the last couple of years? I might as well go out on a limb. Since I graduated...
Want to repeat that? I didn't get that.
Okay. What advice would you have to give to, say, somebody like me? I graduated about 7 years ago. I've been through 2 redundancies, 1 company closure, 1 company bankruptcy. The list goes on quite a bit. But generally, what advice would you give to somebody like me? And specifically, what MBA-related advice could you give someone like me?
Can I take it?
So, Sean, go ahead.
You have amazing experience. You have very, very valuable experience. Believe me, this is valuable for a business school. So don't be shy about applying and setting a high goal. Think to the future. Think about ask these questions about, why am I doing this? What am I trying to get out of it? Specifically, where would I be willing to study? There will be constraints, probably. When would suit me? And how am I going to get this done? What are the next steps, and so on. So just think through it systematically. It's one of the biggest decisions you're going to make. My advice is be very positive. Think of your experience very positively. Secondly, set a high goal. And lastly, work very hard at this. Look at a lot of schools before you decide. Don't be a loyalist to a brand with no reason. Don't just blindly look at rankings and say, oh, that's a top school, I must go with. Look at the details. It's one of the biggest decisions you'll make. Take your time, make a great decision.
Let me maybe add to that. I mean, I think you have already shown that you're very resilient, right? And I think this is a fantastic quality. And my recommendation would be think even beyond education, think beyond business school, and think about this particular quality. Where can put that actually into practice? What kind of job, what kind of function, what kind of role? Where could I really draw on that? Where could I really leverage that? And I shouldn't say this in this round. Maybe an MBA is not the right choice. Maybe you should just leverage this quality that you already have and just put it to practice, maybe in a slightly different industry and a slightly different role. Or maybe MBA is the right thing.
I mean, if you talk to a lot of venture capitalists, for example, with a lot of experience, many of them will tell you that they may not put a lot of money in an entrepreneur that is not, busted a couple of companies already, because of that resilience, because of that dealing with difficult environments, right? And some of the more upbeat and successful entrepreneurs that I know have had a track record precisely of that. I mean, the founder of Unbabel, a very interesting company that is revolutionizing translation, because it's basically, think about Google Translate with a crowdsourcing platform on the top of it to do the last kind of little bit tweaks. He failed 3 times before he started Unbabel. And the way he talks about the difficulties that he went through going, it's immensely powerful in the way that he communicates his experience. And so that resilience that you've had can be immensely powerful, you know, coupled with a variety of a skill set. So I would echo some of my colleagues' remarks about finding what works for you, but those difficulties are something that perhaps, you know, we're going to be more and more, you know, used to, precisely because of the way that the world is going and the variety of significant changes that we see happening across industries and sectors.
Okay, I think we have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. Want to stand and tell us who you are and give us your question and shout it out.
Mike is coming over.
Mike is coming.
Oh, Mike is coming your way.
Right. My name is David, and my question is hopefully very simple. Hello.
Yeah, much better.
We like that hello.
I didn't realize it wasn't working. My name is David. My question is hopefully very simple. Earlier, we heard some comments about online MBAs, and some people feel strongly that they, well, I could paraphrase and say that they have no value whatsoever. And I was hoping we might hear a very brief answer from the schools that do have them about whether they have any value and for whom they might be appropriate. Clearly, like, I agree with the comments about the in-person experience being important and all that, and I think probably most of us are here for an in-person experience type MBA. But who would an online MBA be good for, if anyone?
So Martin, why don't you go first, then Francisco?
Sure. Fantastic. I love that question. I think, for whom? What's the target? I think full-time MBAs are fantastic if you can take 1 year out of your career and you go someplace and have an international experience, ideally, fantastic. Many people don't, unfortunately, have that luxury. They have to continue working. And obviously, an online MBA provides you that flexibility of combining your professional life with the life of a student, and obviously at the same time as well, your personal life. I don't believe that you actually have to make a compromise on the educational experience that you're going to get out of an online MBA versus a full-time MBA or a presential MBA. I have to say as well that we, technically speaking, don't offer an online MBA. All of our MBAs are blended in that sense that we actually kick it off face-to-face, and then we actually take it online. And I really believe there's a lot of value in that. Many roles, and all of you, we heard it from your colleague before, many of you work for prestigious institutions, prestigious companies. Many of you maybe have already fantastic roles where they actually collaborate at a global level. But you don't collaborate with these people at a global level by traveling every single day around the globe. You don't do that anymore. You connect via video conferences, you connect via emails, you connect via WhatsApp. That's the standard nowadays. Even the funny thing is I even send emails to the people just sitting one office outside of my office. And this is how we deal today. This is how we work today. And the online MBA is the perfect medium for that. You actually can excel on some of these skills that, in my opinion, are relevant already in the day-to-day today and will be much more relevant in the future.
Okay, Francisco, last word.
Yeah. So, to say that would also be, in some senses, could say that the weekend MBA is also useless, right? Because you're not also there for the full time. So I don't quite agree with that. And echoes Martin's perspective. Certainly, we also have an element of social dimension where the students stay together at the beginning and then at the end of the first year so that they spend time socially together, especially doing a few intensive projects to create those bonds in a significant way. But the way I think about, at least the way we have our global online MBA set up, is really a digitally mediated, engaging experience that are run, globally. It's not a MOOC where you go and see videos. It's a very interactive, distributed global experience with, tutorials, with group work, with projects that are being done across the globe. And so it would be very reducing to think about day about all the things that you lose. There's all the things that you gain by doing that. So it is much more a matter of, given the set of constraints and your goal, is it best for you vis-a-vis a full-time MBA? And we have both a full-time MBA, a weekend MBA, as well as a global online MBA, and people choose depending on a variety of circumstances. And when you talk to the students that engage with one and the other, they know exactly why they chose that one and not the other, and all of them are happy about that, as the ones that chose the executive MBA, which is actually blended, precisely to try to find that middle ground. So I think what you're going to have is increasingly a continuum of offers from the fully local class to a very distributed online, in some senses the extreme is the MOOC, right? And there's a whole continuum, and you're going to choose depending on where you are and what you want to achieve.
All right, I want to thank all our panelists here for a great session, and I want to thank you for being engaged.